everybody. Hello, Toby. Do you want to say hi? Look, Toby, look. Look. He's like, nah. He's trained a lot today. We had a trainer over. Right, Toby? You did so good. Alright, well, you guys know why you clicked on this video. Because you wanted to grab your pillow, your blanket, your snack, maybe even the book to read along. Whatever is making you comfortable and happy. I hope to put a smile on your face. And yeah, Toby is happy you are here too. Anyway, look, Toby, look at that. Look at the camera. He's not quite tall enough. Okay. That's chill, Tobes. Oh. Okay. We are reading Clarice Bean Spells Trouble by Lauren Child, and we are on chapter 7, and we're gonna get right into it. So get comfortable, and yeah, let's do this. I'm in a sweater, and I think it's like 80 degrees out, and I did some face paint on my arm. This is really hard to see, but it's confident in Japanese. Anyway, so random, but I mean, you might see it if I roll up my sleeves during this. Anyway, I'm going to take these off because I can read better without them. Alright. They are prescribed, though. Chapter 7. Some things that seem like they are going to be dreary aren't as dreary as you think. Page 66. Today I wake up thinking it is going to be the same old dreary day, but before breakfast even, there is a ring at the doorbell, and guess what? It's Uncle Ted, of course. He has been on the night shift at the fire station and is dropping by for some grub at our house. He is always doing this, just turning up when you don't expect it, just out of the blue. It's one of the things I really like about him. He just seems to have the knack of showing up when you need cheering up. It's a natural talent. I don't know he knows it, but he does. Oh, I don't know how he knows, but he does. He says, "Hi there, Clarice B. Here's the deal. For a cup of tea and a chocolate cookie, I will drive you to school in my crazy car." And I say, you got it, even though it takes about less than 7 minutes to get to school if you're a fast walker, which luckily I am. I just like driving in Uncle Ted's car. It's the smallest car you've ever been in, and it's yellow. It's as small as it's drawn to size. Uncle Ted is almost about 7 feet tall, I think. Anyway, tall, and his car is small. Of course, when I go find the cookies, I remember that I ate them all last night, so I say, "Sorry, Uncle Ted, but I'm afraid mine old Cricket ate utterly all of them. He's a bit greedy when it comes to cookies." When I get to school, I find out it isn't going to be a dreary day there either. We go into our class, and there, sitting on the desk, is Mr. Washington. He says, "Hi, folks, my name is Mr. Washington." Now, of course, I don't need to tell anybody here what Washington is. You all know it's the capital city of the United States, and before he can say anything else, Grace Grepillo goes, "And it's an actual state." And Betty Moody puts her hand and says, Also, Mr. Washington is the name of the very first American president." And Mr. Washington says, "Yes, of course, that's right. So who else has got a name that is a place or a thing?" I say, "Well, part of my name is Bean, which is a vegetable, and my last name is Tuesday, and that is a day of a week." And Betty says, "My last name is Moody, but I never am." My cousin Noah says, my cousin Noah says, "My mom is named Marguerite, which is a flower, and she is from Trinidad, and I have been there 5 times, and it's really nice." And then Mr. Washington and Noah talk about Trinidad, and it does sound really nice, and I will probably get to go there at one time soon because I am related to people from there. Mr. Washington says his first name is Phil, with an F, even though it sounds like it should be, with a P, even though it sounds like it should be with an F. And it's short for Philip, and means kind to horses. And Carl Rumberry says, "My name is Carl, and it's short for driving. And it's short for driving Mrs. Wilburton crazy. And it means being in Mrs. Pickering's office quite a lot." And actually, everybody laughs, even including Mr. Washington. When we get out of school, Mr. Moody, call me Cecile, is waiting to take Betty to her trumpet lessons. He says, "How was school today?" And I say, "It was exception She said this so many times, and I still cannot get it. It looks different every time. Exceptionordarily? Oh my gosh, why does she have to make up the hardest word ever? Untrue, because we had a new teacher named Mr. Washington. And Cecile says, exceptionordinarily. What a remarkable word. I might use it myself. And I say, thank you. But Mrs. Wilburton says, I'm not supposed to use it because I have made it up, and it is not an actual proper word, and people can't go around making words up willy-nilly. And Cecile says, nonsense. The dictionary is always growing. That's the wonderful thing. New words are invented every year. Which reminds me, I haven't been learning my spellings for the spelling bee, and it's coming up in a few weeks' time, and I don't want to stand there like a dodo without a clue. So I say goodbye and nip off home. I find the big dictionary and go up to my room. There are more words in there than I will probably ever use in my whole entire life, even if I lived up to 90 or maybe 95. I don't know where to start. So I open it up on Q because there are less Q words, so I feel less scared of them. In fact, one thing that turns out to be quite interesting is that I find out that quahog is a thick-shelled clam of the North Atlantic coast. Quandong, an Australian tree with red fruit that you can make into jam if you want. Quip, a witty remark made on the spur of the moment. Someone who is good at quips is my dad. I also find some words that are yet less useful, and I don't really know what they mean even when I read the meaning. For example, quantal, relating to a quantum or to a system that has been quantized. And there are other words that I just don't think I will use that much. Okay, if you ever, watch the Marvel movies, quantum, just saying, quantum physics. Okay. Quagga, an extinct strippy mammal from the horse family related to the zebra. I am learning the cues for at least an hour and a quarter, and I realize that I am quickly taking in a quantity of quite useful vocabulary. That's a lot of cues. The only thing is I am much more interested in knowing what the words mean than remembering how to spell them. Then Dad calls out that it is supper time, and I go downstairs and I say, I don't mean to quibble, but it is supper. But is it supper time, dinner time, or snack time? Which word is the right word to use? It's just a query, a request for information. Dad says he will have to think about it. I say, do you ever go to Quebec? He says, quite frequently. I say, do we have any quince juice, as I need to quench my thirst? Mom says, no, but we might have some water in the tap. I say, why do we never have quail quiche? My mom says, because it makes me queasy. I say, you sound querulous, inclined to complain or find fault. She says, have you swallowed the dictionary? I say, I am being a bit of a querist, someone who asks questions. Am I being a bit of a querist, someone who asks questions? Mino says, Mom, Clarice is being annoying, and she ate a cookie yesterday before supper when you told her no. Not to. I say queasling, which means traitor. Queasling? Maybe, I don't know. I've not heard a lot of these. Mom says quiet, which means keep it zipped. The next day we are having some play rehearsals. It is hard for me to concentrate because I don't really have to do much since my scene is really short and I'm rather wishing I could go home. I still have got quite a lot of cues to learn and I want to get started on the Y's. Carl keeps making these faces at me to try and make me laugh. And I can see him out of the corner of my eye, trotting up and down doing his Mrs. Wilburton impression, and I am just in the middle of doing my Robert Granger impersonation back when Mrs. Wilburton goes, Clarice and Carl, if you find each other so amusing, perhaps you would be amused to spend an hour together in detention. The choice is yours. Anyway, later in rehearsal, Carl is having to Ralph, the boyfriend of Lisa. He's not happy. Grace is trying to hold his hand because that is part of their dancing routine, and every time she lets go, Carl wipes it on his pants. Mrs. Wilburton says, Carl, you simply must hold hands with Grace. How old are they, like third grade? Carl says, why? Mrs. Wilburton says, because that's what boyfriends do. Carl says, how would you know? Luckily, Mrs. Wilburton doesn't hear as she is too busy adjusting her piano stool. Then Mrs. Wilburton says, Now, Ralph, I want you to kiss Lisa on the hand and twirl her around. Carl says, you must be joking. Mrs. Wilburton says, far from it. Young man, now on the double, kiss and twirl. Carl has a funny look in his eyes, and I'm surprised to see him not marching off. Mrs. Wilburton plunks on the piano, and Carl grabs Grace's hand and licks it. Grace Scarpello screams, which I can tell you is very loud, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't have a small amount of deafness in 1 or 2 ears now. Carl says, there's no way I'm going to kiss a girl on the hands, live on stage in front of the whole school. Mrs. Wilburton is red as a beet. She points at the door and says, Mr. Pickering's office now. We do not lick on other people's hands in the sound of music. When I get home, I study some more spellings. I decide to skip the rest of the cues and move straight on to the Y's. Don't ask me why. That night, I dream that a youthful Yank yearns some yogurt, so it gets aboard a yacht and sails off for years and years, but in the end, all he finds is a yard full of yellow yams. Although I can remember what all these words mean, I am still not the wiser on how to spell yacht. But it's interesting that reading the dictionary turns out not to be dreary at all, and as there are some really good words in there. How long is this? Okay, we're almost done. That's the thing. Some things that aren't meant to be dreary are not. Some things that are meant to be dreary are not. After Carl did the hand licking, Mrs. Pickering said he really couldn't be allowed to play the part of Grace's boyfriend, so now he has the job of sound effects, which Carl is really pleased about. We went over to Betty's, and her mom, Moll, gave Carl her tiny tape recording machine. He's got all kinds of marvelous noises, but I'm not sure how he is going to use some of them. Most of them don't really seem like they would be noises that would happen in the sound of music, but Carl Remberry is quite clever about these things, so I'm sure he will think of something. Betty's dad, Cecile, says, how are you getting along with the spelling bee, Clarice? I say, well, I'm trying really hard, but although I'm studying the dictionary, I am not really remembering any spellings, and my spelling is just as bad as it always was. I say, the problem is people think you are not so smart if you can't spell. Cecile says, but this is not true because lots of smart people can't spell. I say, like, for example, who? Cecile says, like, for example, Einstein, a man who was very good at sums. What he is famous for is E equals mc squared, which is something very clever to do in science. Einstein, he is a person who most people would say is one of the smartest people ever born. This is true, of course. This, of course, is true. I have heard of him. The reason I have heard of him is because he is famous for being smart. So not being able to spell does not make you unsmart. I write this in my Ruby notebook. Einstein, brainy man who couldn't spell. She spelled Einstein, right? Most people spell it wrong. It's right at the bottom here. Well, like right there. Anyway. On Friday at our next drama workshop, we do all these special drama exercises and voice thingies, and I realize there is more to acting than just saying your lines, and that I can do a lot with my face. Amen to that. Zarina says, darlings, acting is about using your entire body and your whole self. Use yourself, use every inch of you, use yourself up entirely. I want to see nothing left of you. She says, very hardest thing to do in acting is to react. She says while she's moving about the room in her special shoes, and when she says the word react, she suddenly shoots out her arm as if she is going to pinch someone on the nose, and everyone ducks. She says, you see, darlings, how you all reacted then? Well, can you do it when you know what I am going to do? Isn't it much harder to act surprised than be surprised? Of course, she is completely quite right. And on the way home, me and Betty cannot stop talking about her. She's so amazing. And I feel all cheerful again because now when I am playing Nun 4, I can use my face to show what kind of person Nun 4 is. Not just a nun, but a nun I have come up with. And even though I have hardly any lines, I can react to things and make the character interesting. That's what life is like. Sometimes you think everything is dreariness, and then you find out it isn't. That is the end of chapter 7. We ended on page 79, so we'll pick up on page 78 for chapter 8. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next chapters or videos, and I'm so glad that you guys clicked on this video. But we can already see that Clarice is learning a lot. We learned that, we also learned that Bean is not her last name, it's her middle name, and her last name is Tuesday, so it's Clarice Bean Tuesday. So that's kind of interesting, but I think she's learning a lot, especially with her acting classes. You're going to learn a lot in acting, and I love acting, so anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and ciao for now.